In the late 1960s and early 1970s, a shadow moved through the San Francisco Bay Area, cloaked in terror and mystery. He called himself the Zodiac. A killer who never seemed to stay in one place, a predator who taunted the police, and a mystery who left behind more questions than answers. The Zodiac's spree of violence spanned several years, during which he claimed numerous victims. Yet, despite his brutal killings and eerie letters, his true identity has never been discovered. This is the story of the Zodiac Killer, an elusive figure who terrorized a region and became one of the most infamous serial killers in American history. Join me as we delve into the real-life events that took place in the 1960s and 1970s, when the Zodiac Killer was suspected to be on the loose, creating fear, confusion, and a chilling legacy that remains unsolved to this day. It all began on the cold evening of December 20th, 1968, when two teenagers, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, found themselves parked along a lonely stretch of road known as Lover's Lane in Vallejo, California. The night was calm, the stars shining down on the quiet, empty landscape, but then, out of nowhere, everything changed. A figure approached their vehicle from the darkness. Without warning, he pulled out a gun and fired. Betty Lou was shot in the back, attempting to flee. David was shot once in the head, his life extinguished in a split second. The killer didn't take anything. There were no signs of a robbery. Nothing but the bodies of two teenagers left in the cold night, their lives stolen for reasons that would remain a mystery. The sound of distant gunshots echoes briefly, heightening the tension. Narrator: reflective, tense. The police found their bodies the next morning. No witnesses, no motives. Just a gruesome crime with no answers. And though the case went cold quickly, the killer would strike again, this time with more violence and more haunting messages. 7 months later, on July 4th, 1969, the Zodiac returned. This time, the victims were Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau, a couple parked at Lake Herman Road near Vallejo. As they sat in their car, talking or perhaps simply enjoying the evening, they couldn't have known the killer was near. A man, calm, collected, approached their car. He fired a round into the vehicle, shooting both Darlene and Michael. Darlene died almost instantly, but Michael survived. Struggling for breath, he managed to give a description to the police. The killer was a white male, about 5 feet 8 inches, and his face remained cold, impassive. But just as quickly as he'd appeared, the Zodiac vanished into the night, leaving 2 victims, 1 survivor, and a string of unanswered questions. The sound of a car door slamming softly, followed by muffled gunfire, sets the scene. Narrator: slowly, with mounting tension. This attack, though brutal, was different. Afterward, the Zodiac didn't just vanish. He sent a letter to the local newspapers, his first cryptic communication to the public. The letter claimed responsibility for the murder and included a strange cipher, promising that it would reveal his identity once solved. The chilling part: the letter was signed with the now infamous symbol, the cross circle. The Zodiac was playing a game, one in which he controlled the rules. Just 2 months later, on September 27, 1969, the Zodiac would strike again, but this time, his violence would escalate. Brian Hartnell, a college student, and his girlfriend, Cecilia Ann Shepard, were enjoying a peaceful day by the waters of Lake Berryessa in Napa County. They had no reason to fear the figure walking toward them across the open field. The man, dressed in an executioner's hood with a strange symbol drawn in white, calmly approached. He was holding a gun, and his movements were deliberate. Without a word, he ordered them to lie down on the ground. Brian and Cecilia complied. Then, the Zodiac tied them up, but that wasn't the worst part. He drew a knife and began carving his symbol into Brian's chest. Afterward, he shot both of them. Brian survived, but Cecilia did not. But it didn't end there. The Zodiac, as if relishing in the control he held, wrote another letter, this one detailing the attack. He sent it to a local newspaper, mocking the police and bragging about his crime. He signed it again with the cross circle symbol. The killer wasn't just interested in murder. He was playing a game in which the police were always a step behind, and the public could only watch in fear. His identity remained a mystery, and he seemed to take pleasure in knowing that. But the Zodiac wasn't done. In addition to his killings, he began sending letters, filled with cryptic ciphers, to the newspapers. One of his most infamous ciphers was sent in July 1969, a complex series of symbols and numbers that he claimed would reveal his true name once solved. The cipher went unsolved for months, but the Zodiac kept writing, each letter more arrogant than the last.